It's live. Right now, we're going to continue reading Trevor Noah's It's Trevor Noah, Born a Crime, adapted for young readers, as you can see up here in my green screen. The green screen is the cover of the book. Last time, we began section 2 of the book, reading chapter 9, and we kept reading and we read chapter 10. So today, we are gonna read chapter 11 with our Busy World Richard Scarry Corporation bookmark. So um it's just a bookmark that I like. Any bookmark is good, even a receipt or a piece of paper. um Chapter 11 is titled Outsider. Excuse me. Welcome to everybody. Everybody is welcome to join us as we read. Come read together, come sit and listen, gather round, and give me a thumbs up if you can. Subscribe if you want to see me again. And talk to me, comment. I try to read the comments and greet everybody as y'all speak. Or leave me a comment if you're watching on the replay. But always give me a thumbs up because that tells YouTube that I'm a good thing and they show me to other people. So it helps my channel thrive. All right, let us begin. Chapter 11, Outsider. After finishing primary school at H.A. Jack, I started grade 8 at Sandringham High School. Even after apartheid, most Black people still lived in the townships and the areas formerly designated as homelands, where the only available government schools were the broken remnants of the Bantu system. Wealthy white kids, along with the few Black people and colored people and Indians who had money or could get scholarships, were holed up in private schools, which were super expensive, but virtually guaranteed entry into university. Sandringham was what we call a Model C school, which meant it was a mix of government and private, similar to charter schools in America. The place was huge, 1,000 kids on sprawling grounds with tennis courts, sports fields, and a swimming pool. Stop it. That's not very nice. Okay. Being a Model C school and not a government school, Sandringham drew kids from all over, making it a near perfect microcosm of post apartheid South Africa as a whole. A perfect example of what South Africa has the potential to be. We had rich white kids, a bunch of middle class white kids, and some working class white kids. We had Black kids who were newly rich, Black kids who were middle class, and Black kids from the townships. We had colored kids and Indian kids, and even a handful of Chinese kids too. The pupils were as integrated as they could have been. The pupils were as integrated as they could be given that apartheid had just ended. Thank you, Summer. Thank you. It's thanks to my mom. That's how my mama made me. Hi, Soft Bird. Thank you for joining me, everybody. Um, the pupils were as integrated as they could be, given that apartheid had just ended. At H.A. Jack, race was broken up into blocks. Sandringham was more like a spectrum. South African schools don't have cafeterias. At Sandringham, we'd buy our lunch at we'd buy our lunch at what we call the tuck shop. a little canteen, and then have free reign to go wherever we wanted on the school grounds to eat. The quad, the courtyard, the playground, whatever. Kids would break off and cluster into their cliques and groups. People were still grouped by color in most cases, but you could see how they all blended and shaded into one another. The kids who played soccer were mostly black. The kids who played tennis were mostly white. The kids who played cricket were a mix. The Chinese kids would hang out next to the prefab buildings. The, the Matrix, what South Africans call seniors, would hang out on the quad. The popular pretty girls would hang out over there or over here, and computer geeks would hang out over there. To the extent that the groupings were racial, it was because of the ways race overlapped class and geography out in the real world. Suburban kids hung out with suburban kids. Township kids hung out with township kids. All right, Mohammed. I'll take $100 if you want to donate. Um, yes, my mom is pretty. Um, at break, as the only mixed kid out of 1,000, I faced the same predicament I had on the playground at H.A. Jack. Where was I supposed to go? Even with so many different groups to choose from, I wasn't a natural constituent of any particular one. I obviously wasn't Indian or Chinese. Thank you, Mohammed. Um, The colored kids would give me grief for being too black, so I wasn't welcome there. As always, I was adept enough with white kids not to get bullied by them, but the white kids were always going shopping, to the movies, on trips, things that required money. We didn't have any money, so I was out of the mix there too. The group I felt the most affinity for was the poor black kids. I hung out with them and got along with them, but most of them took minibuses to school from way out in the townships. They rode to school as friends and went home as friends. So after school, I was on my own. Weekends, I was on my own. Ever the outsider, I created my own strange little world. I did it out of necessity. I needed a way to fit in. I also needed money, a way to buy the same snacks and do the same things that the other kids were doing, which is how I became the tuck shop guy. All right, Mohammed, but send it for real. If you want to tip me and send me money, send it for real. No, for real, you guys. If you want to send me a super chat or something like that, I really appreciate it. Um, Two things were true about me at that age. Two things were true about me at that age. No, thank you then. One was one, I was still the fastest kid in school. And two, I had no pride. The last period before break was assembly, and the second we were dismissed, I would run like crazy to the tuck shop so I could be the first one there. I was always the first in line. I became notorious for being that guy. So much so that people started coming up to me in line. Hey, can you buy this for me? Which would annoy the kids behind me because it was basically cutting the line. So people started approaching me during the assembly. They'd say, hey, I've got 10 rand. If you buy my food for me, I'll give you two. That's when I learned time is money. I realized people would pay me to buy their food because I was willing to run for it. I started telling everyone at assembly, place your orders, give me a list of what you want, give me a percentage of what you're going to spend, and I'll buy your food for you. I was an overnight success. I had so many customers, I was turning kids away. I had a rule. I would take 5 orders a day, high bidders only. I'd take so much that I could buy my lunch using other kids' money and keep the lunch money my mom gave me for pocket cash. Then I could afford to catch a bus home instead of walking, or excuse me, or save up to buy whatever. Um, every day I'd take orders. Assembly would end, and I'd make my mad dash and buy everyone's hot dogs and cokes and muffins. If you paid me extra, you could even tell me where you'd be and I'd deliver it to you. I'd found my niche. Since I belonged to no group, I learned to move seamlessly between groups. I floated. I was a chameleon, still a cultural chameleon. I learned how to blend. I could play sports with the jocks. I could talk computers with the nerds. I could jump in the circle and dance with the township kids. I could tell jokes to any group that was laughing. I wasn't popular, but I wasn't an outcast. I was everywhere with everybody, and at the same time, I was all by myself. And that's the end of the story. Now, if you guys notice, first in this book, Trevor tells us a story, and then he tells us a little preview of what's coming in the next chapter. So this is what I call the preview. See, here the story ended, and now we have this separation line. Here's the preview, and you'll see it's only going to be one page. See, a little bit over here, and then the next chapter, chapter 12. Let us continue. In every nice neighborhood, there's one white family that does not keep up appearances. You know the family I'm talking about. They don't mow the lawn, don't paint the fence, don't fix the roof. Their house looks wrecked. My mom found that house and bought it, which is how she snuck a black family into a place as white as Highlands North. Most black people integrating into white suburbs were moving to places like Bramley and Lombardy East, but for some reason, my mom chose Highlands North. It was a suburban area, lots of shopping, working people mostly, not wealthy, but stable and middle class. Older houses, but still a nice place to live. In Soweto, I was the only white kid in the black township. In Eden Park, I was the only mixed kid in the colored area. In Highlands North, I was the only black kid in the white suburb. And by only, I mean only. In Highlands North, the white never took flight. It was largely a Jewish neighborhood, and Jewish people don't flee. They're done fleeing. They've already fled. They get to a place, build their shawl, and hold it down. Since the white people around us weren't leaving, there weren't a lot of families like ours moving in behind us. I didn't make any friends in Highlands North for the longest time. I had an easier time making friends in Eden Park. In the suburbs, everyone lived behind walls. The white neighborhoods of Johannesburg were built in white fear, fear of black crime, fear of black uprisings and reprisals. And as a result, virtually every house sits behind a 6 foot wall. And on top of that, wall and on top of that wall is and on top of that wall is electric wire. Everyone lives in a plush, fancy, maximum security prison. There is no sitting on the porch, no sitting on the front porch, no saying hi to the neighbors, no kids running back and forth between houses. I'd ride my bike around the neighborhood for hours without seeing a single kid. I'd hear them though. They were all meeting up behind brick walls for play dates. I wasn't invited to. I'd hear people laughing and playing, and I'd get off my bike and creep up and peek over the wall and see a bunch of white kids splashing around in someone's swimming pool. I was like a peeping Tom, but for friendship. It was only after a year or so that I figured out the key to making black friends in the suburbs: the children of domestics. Many domestic workers in South Africa, when they get pregnant, they get fired. Or, if they're lucky, the family they work for lets them stay on, but the baby goes to live with relatives in the homelands. Then the black mother raises the white children, seeing her own child only once a year at the holidays. Only a handful of families would let their domestics keep their children with them, living in the little maid's quarters or flatlets in the backyard. For a long time, those kids were my only friends. All right. Now we're done with that chapter. Now let's read these messages. I see some. Um, yeah, I read you, Jamie, but I'm not gonna let that comment on because I just don't want nasty comments. Um, yeah, this Rustam guy, he or girl, really, I don't know who they are, but that person, Rustam, not worth our time. So hey, people watching and enjoying the story, should I continue on to read chapter 12? Because I do have some more time, and these chapters are really brief. Should I read chapter 12? Can I get a yes? Can I get a no? Can I get a thumbs up? Can I get a hang low? Okay. I am gonna read chapter 12 because this is fun. Hello, McDonald thief from Hawaii. Welcome. Oh, enjoy yourself in Hawaii. I've never been. And Dodo says hi from Bali, Indonesia. Wow, thank you, Dodo. That's a wonderful place. I have a friend who lived there for a little while. Hello, Homer. Okay, everybody, I'm gonna start reading chapter 12. It's called Colorblind, okay? Um, at Sandingham, I got to know this one kid, Teddy. Funny guy, incredibly charming. My mom used to call him Bugs Bunny. He had a he had a cheeky smile with two big teeth that stuck out the front of his mouth. Teddy and I got along like a house on fire. One of those friendships where you start hanging out and from that day forward you're never apart. I'd finally met someone who made me feel normal. I was the terror of the family. He was the terror of his family. When you put us together, it was mayhem. Walking home from school, we'd throw rocks through windows just to see them shatter. Oh, whoa. Um, and then we'd run away. We got detention together all the time. The teachers, the pupils, the principal, everyone at school knew. Teddy and Trevor, thick as thieves. Teddy's mom worked as a domestic for a family in Lynxfield, a wealthy suburb near school. Lynxfield was a long walk from my house, nearly 40 minutes, but still doable. Walking around was pretty much all I did back then anyway. I couldn't afford to do anything else, and I couldn't afford to get around any other way. Teddy and I walked all over Johannesburg together. I'd walk to Teddy's house and we'd hang out there. Then we'd walk back to my house and hang out there. Sounds fun. Um, we'd walk from my house down to the city center, which was like a 3-hour hike just to hang. And then we'd walk all the way back. Friday and Saturday nights, we'd walk to the mall and hang out. The Balfour Park Shopping Mall was a few blocks from my house. It's not a big mall, but it has everything an arcade, a cinema, shops, restaurants. Since we never had any money to shop or watch movies or buy food, we'd just wander around inside. One night, that sounds like me when I was growing up. Walking around the mall, walking around the mall. Wonder if any of you have ever done that when you were young or now that you are young. One night we were at the mall and most of the shops were closed, but the cinema was still showing movies, so the building was still open. There was a stationery shop that sold greeting cards and magazines, and it didn't have a door. So when it closed at night, there was only a metal gate, like a trellis, that was pulled down across the entrance and padlocked. Walking past this shop, Teddy and I realized if we put our arms through the trellis, we could reach a rack of chocolates just inside. And these weren't just any chocolates, they were alcohol filled chocolates. What's chili? I'm glad you like the story, Ray. Thank you for sending chili. I don't know what that is. Oh my goodness, I see 3 gems. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for the support. And thank you for listening to the story. That's the best part. Let's read together. Um, okay. Alcohol filled chocolates. Alcohol filled chocolates. Who's ever had them? Me. Um, we reached in, grabbed a few, drank the liquor inside, and then gobbled down the chocolates. We'd hit the jackpots. We started going back again and again to steal more. We'd wait for the shops to start to close, then we'd go and sit against the gate, acting like we were just hanging out. We'd check to make sure that the coast was clear, and then one of us would reach in, grab a chocolate, and drink the whiskey. Reach in, grab a chocolate, drink the rum. Reach in, grab a chocolate, drink the brandy. We did this every weekend for at least a month, having the best time. Then we pushed our luck too far. It was Saturday night. We were hanging out at the entrance of the stationery shop, leaning up against the gate. I reached in to grab a chocolate, and at that exact moment, a mall cop came around the corner and saw me with my arm in up to my shoulder. I brought my hand out with a bunch of chocolates in it. It was almost like a movie. I saw him. He saw me. His eyes went wide. I tried to walk away, acting natural. Then he shouted, "Hey, stop!" Thank you. Teddy and I bolted, heading for the doors. I knew if a guard cut us off at the exit, we'd be trapped. So we were fleeing as fast as we could. We cleared the exit. The second we hit the parking lot, mall cops were coming at us from every direction. A dozen of them at least. I was running with my head down. These guards knew me. I was in the mall all the time. The guards knew my mom, too. She did her banking at that mall. If they even caught a glimpse of who I was dead. Teddy and I ran straight across the parking lot, ducking and weaving between parked cars and guards right behind us, yelling. We made it to the petrol station out at the road, ran through, and hooked left up the main road. They chased, and we ran and ran. The risk of getting caught was half of the fun of being naughty, and now the chase was on. This book is called It's Trevor Noah, Born a Crime. Stories of a South Stories from a South African Childhood. Okay? And this chapter is chapter 12 called Colorblind. Okay? The chase was on. The chase was on. I was loving it. This was my turf. This was my neighborhood. You couldn't catch me in my neighborhood. I knew every alley and every street, every back wall to climb over, every fence with a gap big enough to slip through. I knew every shortcut you could possibly imagine. Excuse me. As a kid, wherever I went, whatever building I was in, I was always plotting my escape. I knew we couldn't run forever. We needed a plan. As Teddy and I booked past the fire station, there was a road off to the left, a dead end that ran into a metal fence. I knew that there was a hole in the fence to squeeze through, and on the far side was an empty field behind the mall that took you back to the main road and back to my house. A grown up couldn't fit through the hole, but a kid could. All my years of imagining the life of a secret agent for myself finally paid off. Now that I needed to escape, now that I needed an escape, I had one. Teddy, this way, I yelled. No, it's a dead end. We can get through. Follow me. He didn't. I turned and ran into the dead end. Teddy broke the other way. Half the mall cops followed him. Half the mall cops followed me. I got to the fence and knew exactly how to squirm through. Head, then shoulder, one leg, then twist, then the other leg. Done. I was through. The guards hid the fence behind me and couldn't follow. I ran across the field to a fence on the far side, popped through there, and then I was right on the road 3 blocks from my house. I slipped my hands into my pockets and casually walked home. Another harmless pedestrian out for a stroll. No, I didn't make the book. The book is written by Trevor Noah. It's about his childhood in South Africa and under apartheid rule. Or well, right now apartheid fell, but this is by Trevor Noah's autobiography. At least the first one. He might write another one. Um, Once I got back to my house, I waited for Teddy. He didn't show up. I waited 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour. No Teddy. Not good. I ran to Teddy's house in Linksfield. No Teddy. Monday morning, I went to school. Still no Teddy. Not good at all. Now I was worried. After school, I went home and checked at my house again. Nothing. Teddy's house again. Nothing. Then I ran back home. An hour later, Teddy's parents showed up. My mom greeted them at the door. Teddy's been arrested for shoplifting, they said. Definitely not good at all. I eavesdropped on their whole conversation from the other room. My mom was certain I was involved. Well, where was Trevor? She asked. Teddy said he wasn't with Trevor, they said. Are you sure Trevor wasn't involved? Apparently not. The cops said there was another kid, but he got away. So it was Trevor. No, we asked Teddy. He said it was some other kid. My mom called me in. Teddy was caught shoplifting. Do you know about this? What? I played dumb. No, that's crazy. I can't believe it. Where were you? My mom asked. I was here, but you're always with Teddy. I shrugged. Not on this occasion. For a moment, my mom thought she'd caught me red handed, but Teddy had given me a solid alibi. I went back to my room, thinking I was in the clear. The next day, I was in class and my name was called over the PA system. Trevor Noah, report to the principal's office. All the kids were like, ooh. The announcements could be heard in every classroom. So now, collectively, the whole school knew I was in trouble. I got up and walked to the office and waited anxiously on an uncomfortable wooden bench outside the door. Finally, the principal, Mr. Friedman, walked out. Trevor, come in. Waiting inside his office was the head of the mall security who informed ugh, excuse me, waiting inside his office was the head of mall security, two uniformed police officers, and my and Teddy's homeroom teacher, Mrs. Worcester. A room full of silent, stone-faced white authority figures stood over me, the guilty young black man. My heart was pounding. I took a seat. Trevor, I don't know if you know this, Mr. Friedman said, but Teddy was arrested the other day. What? I played the whole thing again. Teddy? Oh no! What for? For shoplifting, he's been expelled and he won't be coming back to school. We know there was another boy involved, and these officers are going around the schools in the area to investigate. We called you here because Vorster tells us you're Teddy's best friend, and we want to know, do you know anything about this? Hi, Nick. I shook my head. No, I don't know anything. Do you know who Teddy was with? No. Okay. He stood up and walked over to a television in the corner of the room. Trevor, the police have video footage of the whole thing. We'd like you to take a look at it. My heart was pounding in my chest. Mr. Friedman pressed play on the VCR. The tape started. It was grainy, black and white security camera footage, but you could see what was happening plain as day. They even had it from multiple angles. Me and Teddy reaching through the gate, me and Teddy racing for the door. They had the whole thing. After a few seconds, Mr. Friedman reached up and paused the tape, with me, from a few meters out, freeze framed in the middle of the screen. In my mind, this was when he was going to turn to me and say, "Now, would you like to confess?" He didn't. "Trevor," he said, "do you know of any white kids that Teddy hangs out with?" "What?" I blurted out. I looked at the screen and I realized Teddy was dark. I am light. I have olive skin, but the camera can't expose for light and dark at the same time. So when you put me on a black and white screen next to a black person, the camera doesn't know what to do. If the camera has to choose, it shows me as white. My color gets blown out. In this video, there was a black person and a white person, but still, it was me. The picture wasn't great, and my facial features were a bit blurry, but if you looked closely, it was me. I was Teddy's best friend. I was Teddy's only friend. I was the single most likely accomplice. You had to at least suspect that it was me. They didn't. They grilled me for a good 10 minutes, but only because they were sure that I had to know who this white kid was. At a certain point, Mrs. Vorster started running through a list of all the white kids she thought it could be. Is it David? No. Ryan? No. Frederick? No. I kept waiting for it to be a trick, for them to turn and say, "It's you!" They didn't. Eventually, I felt so invisible, I almost wanted to take credit. I wanted to jump up and point to the TV and say, "Are you people blind? That's me." Oh my goodness. But of course I didn't, and they couldn't. These people had been so messed up by their own construct of race, they could not see that the white person they were looking for was sitting right in front of them. In the end, they sent me back to class. I spent the rest of the day and the next couple of weeks waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting for my mom to get the call. "We've got him. We figured it out." But the call never came. Excuse me. Wow, that's a crazy story. South Africa has 11 official languages. After democracy came, people said, okay, how do we create order without having different groups feel like they've been left out of power again? English is the international language and the language of money and of the media, so we had to keep that. Most people were forced to learn at least some Afrikaans, so it's useful to keep that too. Plus, we didn't want the white minority to feel ostracized in the new South Africa, or else they'd take all the money and leave. Of the African languages, Zulu has the largest number of native speakers, but we couldn't keep that without also having Xhosa and Swana and Ndebele. Then there's Swazi, Tsonga, Venda, Soto, and Pedi. We tried to keep all the major groups happy. So the next thing we knew, we'd made 11 languages official languages. And then, oh, excuse me. And those are just the languages big enough to demand recognition. There are dozens more. It's the Tower of Babel in South Africa. Every day you see people trying to have conversations and having no idea what the other person is saying. Zulu and Tswana are fairly common. Tsonga and Pedi are pretty fringe. The more common your tongue, the less likely you are to learn others. That's why I think many people in the United States are monolingual because English is so common. Like Trevor just said, it's the language of business and entertainment. The more fringe, the more likely you are to pick up two or three. In the cities, most people speak at least some English and usually a bit of Afrikaans, enough to get around. You'll be at a party with a dozen people where bits of conversation are flying by in two or three different languages. You'll miss part of it. Someone might translate on the fly. Excuse me. Someone might translate on the fly to give you the gist. You pick up the rest of the from the context and you just figure it out. The crazy thing is that somehow it works. Society functions, except when it doesn't. I wonder what that's going to bring us in the next chapter. I'm not going to read another one because I don't have time, but I will give you a little preview. Remember to give me a thumbs up before you exit and come back. So subscribe so you can come back more easily. Um next, not tomorrow because tomorrow is Saturday. Remember you guys, remember y'all, I read during my lunch break at work. So this is 12 to 1 for me. I am in California, so you can figure it out with your time wherever you are. Next Monday, we're going to read chapter 13, and it is called A Young Man's Long, Awkward, Occasionally Tragic, and Frequently Humiliating Education in Affairs of the Heart, Part 2, The Dance. Because remember, we did read Part 1, Valentine's Day. If you didn't see it, go back to the replay and watch it. Listen to a whole book. All right, readers and scholars, I love you. Thanks for watching. Thanks for reading together. And I'll see you next Monday. Bye.